Boys and ghouls, you have Jaime En Fuego here. That's right, yours truly, the headmaster and the showrunner for Enfuegotainment, where I cover the hottest entertainment with an edge. And for the entire duration of October, I have been doing something so very exciting for me, because I have been covering the entire series of Tales from the Crypt. That's right, there are 31 days in this lovely month of October, and there are 93 episodes of Tales from the Crypt. So, hey, covering the Bueno, the Malo, and the Feo, as I always do, made perfect sense, right? 3 episodes a day, get through the entire series in a month, I know. An arduous task, but still one that I had to undertake. You know, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. I love anthology horror, but most notably Tales from the Crypt, for the sheer fact that unlike Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, even stuff like Monsters and Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt really cranked it to 11. Yeah, that's right. And yes, cranking it to 11 is what we did in the previous episode, and this is episode 12. That's right, the 12th part of this coverage. Man, I can't believe I'm almost halfway there. We were so close to being done with season 3, and yeah, season 4 is going to get even better. I am positive of it. So let's jump right into the Bueno, the Malo, and the Feo. Yeah, let's get into that first episode that we're going to be discussing. And the Bueno episode is called Mournin Mess, and actually not mourning, we're talking about like mourning and death. And yeah, the funny thing is, this is the first of 2 of the 3 episodes in this particular installment that are about reporters. Yeah, kind of funny. News guys, journalists, which I technically am, so kind of hits close to home since I've been doing that since back in high school, writing for the school paper before going to ASU and all that other business, and then eventually joining the horror show and heavy metal television and, you know, all the publications I wrote for before this. But yeah, this is just an extension of my journalistic coverage. So seeing Steven Weber, who has done so many different bit roles, I'm telling you, most notably for me, I mean, he was on Wings on NBC. That was one of those sitcoms everybody remembers him for, but I usually think of Stephen King's adaptation that Mick Garris did of Desperation. Yeah, he was one of the like main protagonist guys. He was like the assistant to the crazy writer in that. He was doing that motorcycle tour across the country, and you know, he was kind of following behind and helping them. But good actor. He's one of those faces that you might not like remember as far as like what roles he's done, but he's a face you recognize right away. And so he's kind of a sleazeball reporter. You know, he uses women, he drinks too much, he's not on time, and ends up getting fired. But he's covering this story right before he gets kicked off of this this evening publication, where there's these homeless people disappearing, and he's basically trying to figure out what connection does this have with this new society that's allegedly supposed to be like helping out and bury the homeless and giving them like a proper burial. And it seems very shady. I'm sure if you guys are familiar with Tales from the Crypt and the way storylines kind of go, you can probably guess where this might be going. But this was actually one that I had not seen when I was a kid, and maybe I saw like bits and pieces or something, but it was not one that I remembered. And the acting is great from Weber throughout. And then you've also got Manny Cotto, or Cotto, I'm not sure, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but he was the guy who screenplayed and directed this, and he was behind everything like Silly from Dr. Giggles to actually doing an entire season of Dexter, you know. So he's got a little bit of both sides of the spectrum, but very talented, very awesome, and I gotta say, an incredible director. So yeah, this was the Bueno for me, hands down. It was bloodier, it was stranger, and it kept me guessing, top notch. Next up we have the Malo. Yeah, that's right, and unfortunately it's the return of Walter Hill, who's one of the executive producers on the show. He directed the very first season, or excuse me, the very first episode that they ever showed of the show, which was called The Man Who Was Death. And yeah, it's got similar tropes of breaking the fourth wall, the guy addressing the audience, and this time addressing the audience is Richard Jordan, who you guys have probably seen on Logan's Run. He was in The Hunt for Red October. He was in Gettysburg. This one is just too silly though. You know, it's about, once again, a reporter, and he's down on his luck as well, drinking too much. Are we seeing a pattern here? Yeah, but this guy he's a lot older than Steven Weber's character was in the previous story. This one is called Deadline, and this guy is like past his deadline, you know? He actually doesn't even have work anymore. He's not like on the verge of losing work like Weber was. He has lost work, and he's desperately trying to find it again. He meets a girl at a bar. He thinks he's hitting it off with her. Things are not what they seem, and he's just desperately searching for a story, desperately trying to see work, but he's much more over the hump than Weber's character was. And so this one, yeah, Walter Hill, once again, I know you did great stuff with 48 Hours and Last Man Standing and Warriors, and you know, the list goes on. I'm sure somebody like liked Raw Deal. I sure as shit didn't, you know, that Arnold Schwarzenegger film. But yeah, this one was just very disappointing, man. It could have been good. It was not. It was just very boring and lackluster and kind of by the books, and I think even worse than The Man Who Was Death. Yeah, just personal opinion though. So lastly, we go into a Feo. That's right, after seeing the MALO in this previous one, we have to go into the Feo now. And this one is called Split Second. Yeah, and it is actually from Shock Suspense Stories. Yeah, just like the previous episode was. The very first one though was actually from the Tales from the Crypt team, so from the official storyline. We got Brian James as this lumberjack like foreman. He was on tons of stuff. He was in Blade Runner. I mean, the list goes on. He was a big beast of a guy, 6'3", and you can really even see that on screen. So no surprise that he's like, you know, the head honcho in this lumberjack brigade. And so he brings on this total hooer of a wife. Yeah, she's this short-haired, just foxy hottie. Oh my goodness. And she's just a little waitress at this place where all the lumberjacks know her and all the lumberjacks know her, if you know what I mean. So this guy kind of makes the mistake of marrying her, and then he's jealous throughout. Big hotshot guy comes and, you know, starts chopping down trees so magnificently, and you start to realize even how much more of a sleut his wife is. And so yeah, it's Feo for the sheer fact that it's one that I remember as being good as a kid, but it's especially ugly because it shows how just, God, shady and scandalous a woman can be throughout. And scandalous women get away with stuff, sometimes they don't. I'm not going to divulge to you what transpires in this one, but this lumberjack, this younger guy shows up, and yeah, some stuff starts to transpire, and there's a jealous husband who's like beating the crap out of all of his lumberjacks who are even batting an eye at her. So yeah, I guess you can guess where this might be going, but the twist is very good. It's quite effective, I must say. And the real person you have to mention in this one is Richard Christian Matheson, because he has done work for all kinds of anthology horror. He did Steven Spielberg's Amazing Stories, which was kind of more along the lines of like Outer Limits meets Twilight Zone, not quite as scary, but this guy also did Nightmares and Dreamscapes by Stephen King, and then also Masters of Horror, which was a Mick Garris thing, another protege of Stephen King. So yeah, the ending to this one is good. It's ugly for the sheer fact that, yeah, like I said, it shows how ugly women can be sometimes, and there's some great ugly gore. So yeah, this is one that I had seen as a kid. It's aged very well, so we're just gonna end it at that here, part 12 here for my Tales from the Crypt coverage. I have so much more awesomeness coming at ya. I have been Jaime En Fuego. This has been Enfuegotainment. Be sure to check out the horrorshowchannel.com, which is where I cover all things spooktacular when I am not here on Enfuegotainment. And I have so much more fun from this amazing series that John Kassir did such great voice work of the Crypt Keeper for, and HBO produced such a tremendous and memorable show. So once again, I've been Jaime En Fuego. This has been Enfuegotainment, and I look forward to bringing you more coverage in the coming days. And until then, adios, sin amigos!